All right. Well, welcome everybody to this special training that we're going to be having today. My name is Ben Miller. I am direct to Ryan Miller in the Miller Puckett Sylvester Whalen hierarchy, and very pleased to be so. And we have Miranda Martin also with us today, and together we're hoping to shed some light on some best practices for the call-in leads, as well as best practices for appointment setting. And I say we get started, Miranda.
All right, sounds good. Miranda Martin, to Ryan Miller, and again, also the Sylvester Whalen Puckett hierarchy. Um, I'm really excited. Ben and I, we've actually been blessed to have worked together for a very long time before coming to Symmetry Financial Group, and our background has actually been in call centers, so this is something that we're really passionate about, and we're very convinced that the information that we're going to be talking about today is probably going to be able to double the amount of appointments that you've been able to get off of our new lead source if this is something that you've been struggling with. So Ben, do you want to start it off?
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's something that I want everybody to consider. And really, it's really important for our growth moving forward. You know, we're going to start to see diversification in our lead sources, and with that diversification, we're going to have to make some small changes to our system as far as maybe the phone work is concerned. But one of the things that I think is important to realize is the changes that we're making are actually quite small. You know, in fact, as we start to get into this, the change that we're making on the call-in for the call-in leads are going to be strictly in the intro. It's just the first couple of sentences. And as long as you can strengthen your skill set on that first couple of sentences, in other words, memorize the change, you know, practice it, be comfortable with it, be okay with it, and expect and assume that you're going to be able to get past that intro, the rest of the call is really going to be the same thing. And the same side goes for the sales, right? I mean, we're still going to be sitting in front of a consumer who has a mortgage that we're looking to protect. So right now, as we start to diversify a bit more in these lead sources, you know, we all should be excited about that because now we don't have to put all of our eggs in one basket, right? And so we're going to be able to get a lot more of the market, which is going to help everybody. So I say, Mer, let's get right into the intro and basically who to ask for.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said there, Ben. Hold on, it says it sounds like we're underwater. Um, Are you calling through the computer audio, Ben? Because I think they're having trouble hearing us.
Okay, no problem. I will go ahead and change that. Go ahead, Mer.
Give me one sec, guys.
All right, can you guys, are you there, Ben? Okay, so I hope you guys can all hear me now. Okay, sorry, now we're called in, and hopefully that'll help. So basically, what happens is, the part that Ben was talking about on the introduction, it's easy to kind of get thrown off when you're calling a new lead source because you're thinking it's different, when really the only thing that's different is in the very beginning is the way that you're going to introduce yourself to these people, and oh no.
Okay, I hope that's helped. Okay, I apologize for all that. This software is going crazy. But okay, so the only thing that's really makes a difference is in the very beginning, is the introduction with the clients. So one of the things that kind of throws people off is the only thing is these guys are thinking in the back of their mind, oh, they're going to be mean, or they're going to be a lot more challenging. But at the end of the day, if we can just hold our client's hand and walk them through the process of how we got in touch with them, I find that that's what actually clears us up to being able to get that introduction confidently. So in the very beginning, we want to make sure that we're asking for the people confidently. And one of the things that's super important is to make sure that we're talking to the person who picks up the phone. So, for example, if the letter says John Smith and a lady picks up the phone, we want to say, oh, hi, Miss Smith. My name's Miranda. I'm following up with you about your mortgage and the amount of $200,000 with Wells Fargo Bank. You just want to jump right into it and assume that she's the person that you need to be talking to. Or else what happens is you can go on a wild goose chase trying to get the gentleman on the phone when indeed perhaps she's the one who had called in the first place.
Hey, Mer.
Yes. I know. How's it going?
Sorry, it just got back here. Can I piggyback off of that?
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. And when we do dial teams, one of the things I notice with a lot of new agents is they may ask for Mr. or Mrs. Smith, or they might say, "Hi, may I please speak to the owner of the home?" Or they'll basically identify themselves as a telemarketer. And the thing that happens when that happens is that the consumer is now going to be very guarded, and it's going to be very difficult for you to move forward. So what we're talking about there, I know we talked about before in the last call, but that's really critical to get to the next step.
Awesome. Okay. So what may happen is if I say, "Hi, Mrs. Smith," she might say, "No, I'm not Mrs. Smith." Okay, well, are you the head of the household? Yes. Okay, great. Or do you live at this at 12345 Street? Yes, and I continue on. So just be very clear in the beginning that you just want to get into that script as confidently and as smoothly as possible. So moving.
Now this is actually very pertinent to the new call-in leads. So I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of a key here. Sometimes when I was calling these leads, if I'm asking for Mrs. Smith and she says, "Yeah, this is she," and I'll go right into my script, she may come back and tell me that she never called. All right, or Miranda's going to get into this in just a minute. She might say, "No, we're not interested." And what we're going to do is we're going to try to remind her of what she did. We're going to try to remind her that she received the postcard, either her or her husband, and on this postcard it talked about something of great importance regarding the loan, regarding mortgage protection, which they called in, answered a few questions, and so forth. And then if she still is really resistant, she says, "No, we never did that." Something I want you to do is you want to divert at this point, and you want to say, "Okay, no worries. If it wasn't you, then it definitely was it definitely was your spouse. So can you do me a favor and let him know that we're giving him a call back?" Now what's going to happen is she's going to hear the word call or the words "call back," and now she's going to probably think this is a little bit more serious than she thought. So she's going to take down the information as far as, "Yeah, okay, so what's your name?" "Ben Miller." "Okay, great. And you know what? We're going to try to give him a call back a little bit later. I appreciate your time." So now she's going to say, "Hey, okay, no worries." She's going to tell her husband, "Some guy named Ben Miller is calling regarding the mortgage, and I have a second chance now to deliver my script to the person who probably was the one who gave the call."
Cool. And what I found when I was calling through these leads, I know on the introductory call we said that the book rate would actually perhaps be less. I actually found that it was pretty close to the same as the A leads that I was calling off of. But the key is the confidence that you go in there with to the script. So if you're unsure or you're kind of like expecting that you're going to get resistance, it's almost like instinctual. Like, when they say animals can tell when you're like nervous or whatever, you think it's the same thing on the phone, right? The only thing that we have it to our advantage is the way that we speak and the confidence that we go there with. And in this system, our confidence is what makes people want to talk to you, okay? So, and also, we talked about it before, but not pausing at the end of the sentence, because that's also going to show that you're not confident. So on this script, this is the call-in script that I'm sure we'll be getting this circled around, but I actually put little highlights on here of where I recommend pausing. And the verbiage is slightly different in the start, but I find that this is going to give you the strength to get through this introduction, this is where they're deciding if they want to do business with you. So if we can nail this, pause in the right spot, and then strategically get into the qualifying of their personal information, we're going to book these guys, okay? Do you want to role play that first part, or is there anything else you want to add there?
Well, the thing I'm going to recommend is for everybody to do a lot of role playing for yourself. I mean, even take a recorder and just practice that first couple sentences here, and do it until you become really good and comfortable with it. Because what's going to happen is, if it's different, you're going to be a little bit fearful because it's different. And that fear is going to come across when you're delivering the script. So if you're jumping right in and you're not giving yourself the best chance for success, in other words, you're not practicing before you actually do it, it's going to be hard. Not that you can't work through it, but it'll be a lot easier if you just spend the time memorizing the small changes, practicing it until you get comfortable, and then delivering it on the phone. So
Yeah.
yeah, Murph, go ahead. You wanna start do role play?
Yeah, I had an agent actually the other day, Louis Zemont. He's brand new to Symmetry, and I got on the phone with him and did like a role play, and I was like, man, you sound like you have really polished this thing. And what he had said, he's like, yeah, I recorded myself, I listened to it, I played it back, and then he took it paragraph by paragraph and did it until it sounded confident and that he wasn't pausing at the end of the sentences and just perfected it. And if we take that type of dedication and commitment towards this, it's going to move mountains for you guys for sure. And Ben and I have always trained that practice on each other, not on our guests. Especially now, if we're spending $10 to $30 a lead, my goodness, what is an hour or two of practice ahead of time to make sure we're doubling or tripling our appointments that we're going to be setting, right?
It's funny that you say that. I had an agent, kind of along the same guidelines there. He was struggling on the phone. He really wasn't doing the kind of activity he needed to get the results. So that was part of the issue. But we also started to talk a little bit about scripts. And I just had him give me his script on how he delivers it. And it turns out that it wasn't very close to what the script is supposed to be. And I think a lot of agents fall error to that, right? They use this as a foundation, and then very quickly they'll start to make some changes. And the thing I'll tell you about this is if you start to make some changes, especially changes that haven't been tested, who knows what's going to happen. So if you're new, the best thing for you to do is just follow the structure, follow the script. And that's exactly what I told my agent. And that very next weekend, he texted me his results. And he said, I dialed 178 dials, got 30 contacts, and booked 17 appointments off of the bonus leads. And so just by sticking to scripts, he was able to increase his results. And then on that recording that you said that guy did, he decided to record himself on live calls. And when he was listening to him in the very beginning, he said he sounded like he was on helium. I mean, he was just going so quick. He was so excited, and he didn't realize he was doing that. So when you listen to yourself, you'd be amazed on some of the things that you catch yourself doing.
Yeah, I had an agent yesterday I was working with, and he kept adding the word just everywhere. And he didn't even realize he's doing it. And he's like, it's just Miranda calling. I'm just following up on your mortgage. I'm just this. And just had snuck into almost every line that he had said. Everything was also perfect. But just by that one little tiny word, it just took everything that he was saying from super confident, which I knew he knew his stuff, to just. So little things like that, guys, you'll discover when you really dive in and just master this stuff. But anyways, I'll go through here, Ben, and then we can kind of piggyback off of some of the changes and why they're there, and then I guess move on through the next part of the script.
Perfect.
Okay. Hey, Ben Miller, please.
This is he.
Hey Ben, my name's Miranda Martin. I was following up with you about your mortgage for $250,000 with Wells Fargo Bank, and I'm getting back to you about that postcard you received in the mail regarding your mortgage. You or your spouse called the number and followed the phone prompts to answer a few questions so that we could contact you back regarding your mortgage protection options. And I was in the middle of getting your options worked up this morning, and I realized I needed maybe 10 seconds of questions to get this taken care of for you. So let me just verify some of that information you provided, and I can finish working up those options for you. You have indicated that your date of birth is just January 1st, 1978. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, cool.
So real quick, we'll just tap on a few things here, and then we'll get right into the date and time progression. Number one, guys, that is the only change we have to the call-in lead. So if you try to simplify it, this is what she just did, right? She identified who she was, why she was calling, she reminded them of what they did, and then she goes right into verification. That's all we're doing. And so that reminding part, this is the thing that I think is probably extremely important with this lead source, is you really do have to remind them of what they did. Because what's going to happen is they're going to think back to their day. I mean, think about you. how many activities are going on in your day at any given time? You know, it could be either picking up the kids or getting lunch ready or doing this, making phone calls, dropping off policies. So there's about a million things that take place. So when we're calling these leads back, it might be a couple days later. Well, gosh, I mean, it of course it makes sense that they might not remember right away. So we're giving them a chance to remember. We're almost bringing back that emotion, right? We're bringing back that process. And then once it clicks in their head, then they're going to be able to be okay with us moving forward with the scripts. Or that's when you're going to start to get some rebuttals.
Yeah, and just as important as we talked about when we did the training on the corporate Wednesday call, there's no time to give them a room to back out of this. I'm not really going to give them a chance to say much until I'm the one that's asking questions. In the entire process, the entire marketing and sales process, the guy who's in control wins. And the guy that's in control is the guy that's asking questions. So we don't want to go up at the end of our sentence to make it sound like we're asking a question, and we definitely don't want to do pauses or say, is that okay with you guys? If you don't mind, we don't want to be like, any of that's going to take away our confidence. And in some aspect, you almost want to put your time and you almost on a pedestal to make sure that they're taking you as seriously as a professional.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably one of the major things people have a hard time with is they come across like a customer service representative instead of maybe like a doctor's office verifying appointment.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you, Miranda, but when my doctor's office calls, they don't really sound like, I mean, I'm not saying they're not friendly because they are, but I also can very, very much tell what they're talking to me about is important. And it's not like they're trying to sell me on something. They're just trying to verify information. And I think that that's the posture we have to have when we go into these calls. See, a lot of times in our old business, our sales and our marketing was separate. So we actually had people, we had appointment setters just scheduling appointments but not doing the sales. We had our sales guys doing the sales only, not scheduling the appointments. And so what happened when we got the sales guys starting to make the appointments is they took a sales approach to the marketing phone call. In other words, they're trying to pre-sell the sale before they get there. And so in this case, you might be over friendly, and that sounds very salesy, you know, or you're basically trying to appease them, right? By asking, is it okay if I, you know, do you have a quick 15 minutes? Like you're trying to be super, super nice. And the reality is we don't have time to be nice. We have to get through this because they need to be protected. We have to have a sense of urgency here. And when Miranda delivered her script there, those highlights that you see there, that's where we need to pause, because if you do that and you pause at those spots, you're going to find that the number of questions, the number of NIs, the number of rebuttals that you get are going to be diminished by half, if not more. I mean, Miranda, how often do you really get people interrupting you during the intro now?
Unless they're very loud and very firm, they can't, because I don't give them a chance. Really? So unless like, hey, like they do that, then that's about it. And that doesn't, you know, not most people don't do that when they don't even know what you're talking about.
So maybe we can set a goal for everybody who's listening to the call. Maybe today, if there's anything else, if there's nothing else that you take from this call, let it be to be an expert at that intro side, to where you're presenting it where you're not pausing at the wrong spots. And then I want you to see exactly what happens to the number of rebuttals that you get during that intro. I mean, prove us wrong or prove us right, but what's going to happen is we know you're going to double your appointments because you're going to get further into the script. The more information people know, the more likely they're going to be interested. So if they say to us that they're not interested in the very beginning here, what do they know? They don't know anything. They're saying that they're not interested, but they don't even know what we're talking about yet. So our first objective is to get them to listen to us. And this technique of where to pause and the way that you're saying your script is going to help them get a little bit further into the script. So do you want to cover some of the rebuttals, Mer, that come in there, and then we'll get into the date and time progression?
Yeah, like guys, the only difference for rebuttals, I use all the same ones that I use already for my normal calls, but the only real difference was if they said they didn't remember doing it, now I just want to hold their hand and walk them down the path of how I ended up on the phone with them, and then go right back to script. Like they called in, they put their information in the computer system, Now I'm calling you, and let's get back to the questions again. So, and again, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it and the confidence that you go there with. And I actually do that. I kind of laugh sometimes with them. I don't know if it's not at them, but I go, guys, it was either you or your spouse. And I kind of make it like the ultimate sign of confidence is to be able to smile while you're dealing with something that could be stressful, you know?
Can
It's
can
at,
we role play? Can we role play that first intro, Mer, and then I'm gonna just tell you that we're not interested, and then you go and kind of remind me again, and then don't say anything. Don't do what we normally do. Just pause like most people do.
so you want
You
me
know
to
what
do
I
it?
mean?
You want me to
Do it
just
wrong.
okay? You want me to do the intro in confident as well, or you want? What
No,
do you?
do all that really good, but then when I jump in and say not interested and you try to remind me, I want you to give the rebuttal that you're talking about, but instead of moving forward in the script like we're supposed to, we basically pause to wait for acceptance. I want them to hear how that sounds because a lot of them are probably doing that.
Okay. Hey Ben, Miranda Martin here. I was following up with you about your mortgage for $250,000 with Wells Fargo Bank, and I'm getting back to you about a postcard that you received in the mail regarding your mortgage. You or your spouse, they called into the number, followed the phone prompts to answer a few questions so that we could contact you back regarding your mortgage protection options. And I was in the middle of getting those options worked out for you this morning, and I realized I needed about, I don't know, 10 seconds of questions to get this taken care of for you. So let me verify some information you provided so I can working
You
up
know,
the.
this is I don't really know what you're talking about. I never made a phone call to you guys.
Oh, it was, okay, because, yeah, I got this form here, and yeah, I think you guys did for sure, because else I wouldn't have had this here. So, um, are you sure you didn't
So
do
do you
it?
see?
I did it,
Yeah,
maybe.
there we go. So what happens here is now we're trying to defend a position. So look at the strategy. When the client, or not the client, say the telemarketer, quote unquote, let's just group us with everybody else for a minute. When a telemarketer starts to defend their position, what happens to you? You start to defend your position even more. So what we're recommending is instead of trying to defend a position, saying no, are you sure? Or I'm sure it was you, or whatever it might be. That's chasing down a rabbit hole. Instead, let's kind of jog their memory a little bit. So that's the script Miranda's talking about. And when you jog their memory a little bit, you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of people opening up a little bit more. And in most cases, they're going to remember doing it. So that's good. You want to do it one more time, Mer, and then let's do it the right way?
Sure.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start by me with the rebuttal. So Mer, I don't remember, Miranda, I don't know what you're talking about. I never made a phone call to you guys.
Okay, well, it was either you or your spouse who received that postcard in the mail about your mortgage. And it was either you or your spouse. There was a number on there. You called in, answered the prompts to request pricing options to protect your home in case, God forbid, something happened to one of you guys. I was the caseworker, Ben, that was assigned to get this taken care of for you. And really, I just have about 10 seconds of questions here. You indicated when you called in that your birthday is January 1st of 1978. Is that correct?
It is correct. Now let's pause for a minute. So now what's going to happen is for most people, they're going to allow Miranda to continue. We're going to answer the question. Yes, that's correct. That's what I left. Or here's the scenario two, and this is the change I want you guys to make. If they are still resistant here, if they still say to you, this I kind of talked about this just a little bit earlier. If they still are adamant that they didn't call, then this is where you need to start to divert. And when you divert, you just say very simply with confidence, okay, no worries, Mrs. Smith. If it wasn't you, then it definitely was Mr. Smith. If you could do me a favor, let him know that we're giving him a call back. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and touch base with him a little bit later. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great day. And now I'm not giving her a chance or him a chance to say no. I'm saving the NI because it's clear as day that they're a little bit resistant at this point, and I don't want to push it. Otherwise, I'm going to get the NI. Now I'm going to kind of basically break, get the message to her or him, whoever I'm talking to, saying that I'm calling back, And I'm telling you, in our old business, when we did that, the message always got to the spouse. And when I called back the next time, I got a bit further in the script. So use that as a tool, and I'm sure it's going to help you.
There was a question. I know it says here, I know the caller captures the caller ID. And what happens if you call the caller ID number, which you know is for their real number, and they still say they didn't do it? I always, before I'm gonna put someone in the NI like in the garbage can, okay, the NI pile. I'm gonna make sure that they're okay, because I feel like when I get a lead, my job is to make sure that this family's in a better spot than when I found them. So I'm gonna just call them out and say, well, listen, I appreciate that you don't remember doing this, but let me ask you a question. If God forbid something happened to you, let's say tomorrow, is your family gonna be okay as far as the mortgage and the home and everything's concerned?
And that's a bold question. And that's where you take the extraordinary, or the difference between the extraordinary and the ordinary. The ordinary person is just going to accept it for face value, NI it, and throw it away. What you're doing is you're going a step further, and you're being genuine with them. So now I want everybody to think about when you're in a presentation. When you're in a presentation and you're genuine with someone, what typically happens? Is it usually a positive outcome or a negative outcome? I mean, in most cases, if I'm genuine and they see that I care, usually they're going to start to be more genuine with me and kind of let down the guard. The same is going to hold true on the phone. Problem is we're not face to face, so it's a little bit more challenging, right? So what she did is she took a bold statement. She still didn't back down. She didn't say, well, you know, I'm not sure exactly how this happened or how I got the information, but so now you're just reinsuring that they never requested it, which is not true. They did. What she's saying is, I can totally appreciate the fact that you don't remember doing this, but I got to ask you a question. If something happened to you today, or something happened to your spouse today, and that income stops coming in, are you guys going to be okay? Is your home going to be okay? Are you going to be able to stay in that home? And it's funny, because once you ask something like that, things get real. And the people quickly identify themselves as, yeah, you know, that kind of is the problem. Is that what this is about? Or they'll say, yeah, we're totally good. And then Miranda has done everything that she can. She goes on to the next one. But at least she's pushing. She's pushing another time just to make sure that these families are left in a good condition, or a good position.
There's one more question. What do someone say when they ask what company that you're with? You definitely don't want to tell them that you're calling from their mortgage company, and sometimes that we can say that by accident, and we don't want to do that. I go back to telling them, just painting the picture of how I got on the phone with them and saying, you know what, a while ago the bank would actually do the mortgage protection directly when you did your loan, but now they have a license. Now what happens is a licensed agent takes care of that for clients, and the people that are interested actually respond back after they buy a home or refinance, and those that are interested get connected with a person like me. The company's Symmetry Financial, but I actually work, you know, as a broker with like 30 different carriers. So my job's to find you the best thing at the best price and make sure that you're in a good spot. So something along those. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Murph.
I'm done. Yep.
So do you notice how that? So that, to me, that didn't sound scripted. That was genuine. That's what we are, right? When somebody says, well, what company are you with? I do something very similar. And then at the end of what my statement is, I'm not pausing. This is where I'm telling you guys, if you just get this one point, it's going to make a huge difference. When I make my statement, or when I answer their question, right now they're in control because they asked the question. So now I'm responding to them. But in a traditional conversation, after I get done responding, what most people will do is pause so the other person gets a chance to talk. But this is not that. We have to take back control. So instead of pausing at the end of that sentence that you're going to state, now we just move forward, which is what Miranda was going to do before I interrupted her. Now we just keep moving forward through the script. If you can push forward further and further into the script, what's going to happen is they're going to learn more information about why we're calling and become more and more interested, which is going to increase your likelihood to book an appointment.
It goes back to what we said before, Ben. Say it strong, even if you're wrong. I was role playing with some agents, new agents the other day, and one of them said this completely wrong rebuttal, but he said it strong, and he went right back to script, and I just laughed, and everyone on the call was like, "That was a wrong rebuttal." I'm like, you know what? He would have won. What you're right, it was the wrong rebuttal, but he said it so confidently, and how he went right back to script, I bet you that would have been fine. So you're so right when no pausing. That's it. Like I said, the confidence is what's going to get people to want to do business with you, right?
So,
and obviously saying that helps.
Sorry, Mer.
No, it's fine.
So to kind of wrap up the intro, if you're taking notes, I want you to write down these 3 common things that will happen if it happens. If you give them a chance to talk, this is typically what they're going to say. They're going to tell you either, can you call me back because I don't have time? They're going to tell you that they're not interested, or they're going to tell you that they don't remember sending in the information or calling the information, which quite frankly is the exact same things that typically happen on a mortgage protection direct mail lead. I mean, there's no real difference in that. So we're taking the same approach to that. And so what I'm going to recommend everybody to do is make sure you speak to your mentor and ask them how they recommend you answering those rebuttals. I mean, we have the way that we do it, but you know, we want you to make sure you communicate with your mentor about the rebuttals that you guys are using. So with that said, Mer, do you want to add anything else there, or go right into the date and time progression?
Yeah, I think, guys, as long as you can see, I'm sure you can all see my screen, just, and then we'll wrap up the intro. Make sure that you're adding a few words into the next sentence and not pausing at periods. So I even kind of wrote it on the script. I moved it around. You indicated that when you called in that your birthday is, and that's where you do the pause. Like, just get good at not pausing at the end of sentences and not pausing at the end of rebuttals, and it's going to just change everything. So if you guys see how I wrote it on here, some of it is very run-on sentences. I did this so it'll be easier for people to read it the way that's going to be most effective on the phone. Okay.
I'm glad you said that. It's like it doesn't have to be grammatically correct. like I know that sounds strange, but it does. It's run-on sentences. The best run-oner is the one that's going to book the most appointments.
But the cool thing is, if you pause in the middle of sentences, you don't have to talk fast. You can actually talk 3 times slower because you have control. And then you can have things pop up like, hey, Ben, you or your spouse called in that number, then followed the phone prompts to answer a few questions. So we could contact you back about your mortgage protection options. And I was in the middle of getting those options worked up this morning and realized I needed maybe, I don't know, 10 seconds of questions to get that taken care of for you. So I can play around with action now because I'm totally in control of all this, right?
Hey, and you just totally highlighted a golden nugget that if they didn't catch can make a big difference. The golden nugget is like everybody talks about pace. The pace is going to help you become more of a non-salesperson on the phone, right? The sales guy or the telemarketer, let's say, is going super fast. Just remind yourself of all the telemarketers that call you and how they sound. And we don't want to sound like that. So what Miranda just said was, to help control your pace, if you pause in the middle of the sentences, it gives you the freedom to go slower. And the reason why is because the guy on the other end of the line is still waiting for you to finish the sentence. So that's the irony of it, right? He wants to hear the rest of it. So it's kind of like reverse psychology anyway, but she just gave you the key on how to control your pace. Okay, so between the pace and the pausing, that will get you through the intro and moving into the verification, which we're going to skip. We assume that everybody understands what to verify and all that stuff. And then we're going to go jump right into the date and time progression, which we have not spoken about yet. So this will be fresh material.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Hold on just 1 second. I just want to make sure we covered all of the questions about the intro, and we'll answer the other ones at the end. Okay, we're good. Yep. All right, okay, cool. Oh, hold on. Okay, yes. Okay, we're good. Okay.
All right. So now we're going from intro. We did all the verifications, and now we're setting ourselves up to set the appointment. This should go without saying, but I guess we should say it because it's kind of like appointment setting 101. you got to set yourself up for success when you dive into the appointment setting. So the posture is very important here. You got to remember, you're not trying to fit into their schedule. They need to fit into our schedule, right? I'm not going to try to make an appointment that best fits their schedule, although I'm going to make them feel that it is. I'm going to be scheduling the appointments where I need the appointments. Because if they don't know what I have available, you know, and I only give them certain options, essentially I'm in control of that. Now I'm making them feel like they're in control, which is good. It's a give and take relationship. But in the end, you got to position your schedule. You got to schedule all your appointments intentionally. You know, we talk about people who are retired. I will never, ever, ever, in most cases, I would not book a retired person in the evening. It's silly to do it because I can get them in the morning or afternoon. You know, or you know, it's just things like that. So, or the other way is, if I'm dealing with somebody who works, right, but all my evenings are already booked up, I'm not going to ask them if evenings are better. I'm only going to ask them mornings or afternoons. So now in their mind, they don't even think evenings are an option. And you'll be shocked on how their schedule opens up if this is important.
So there's one thing that I find is really, really critical to posturing ourselves, and it's right here highlighted. I only have 15 minutes to show you what you're qualified for. That's not you asking them, hey, do you have 10 minutes for me? When can I see you? And I use it, I put it back to dating. Imagine you're trying to get a date with some, hey, you know, can we go out on this day? Can we go out on that day? And, you know, I only need like, you know, one night. And like it just kind of sounds desperate, right? With this, it's the same thing. If you're like, listen, I'm busy. I only have one day or one night or 15 minutes. It's a totally different mindset, right? And we want to make sure that we're the ones that are in control, and it's our time that's valuable. If we
let's tie it together.
Yeah. If we have respect for our schedule, it's gonna demand respect from them, right? So sorry.
So let's tie it into the sales process now, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if I schedule an appointment based on their convenience, what's the likelihood of me having control when I get into the sale, like the presentation? What's typically going to happen in the presentation? You know, typically it's me battling, right, for my position. But if I'm scheduling an appointment where they're basically fitting into my schedule, and I say it that way because really that's how it has to be. When I get there, already I'm in control, so now I'm just kind of following through suit, right? Now that I was in control over the phone, I'm going to be in control in the home. And that includes going from the living room to the dining room, right? You know, letting them know what's going to take place. So this all ties together. So I want you to know and note to yourself on your paper if you're taking notes that if you schedule an appointment where the consumer is in control, you're going to see that your close rate will be impacted by that. And if you haven't tracked it, I encourage you to do it because it's mind-boggling how much of an impact that's going to have on your close rate. All right, so now let's get back into the phone and the date and time progression.
Cool. And just one, hold on, I'm really busy. Okay, cool. All right, so what's important is that you guys have your calendar ready to go and that you've got predefined times that you're going to be showing people. So that you are in control of your schedule. One of the things we want to make sure that we avoid doing is calling them back. Like if someone says to you, hey, you know, I can't talk, can you call me later or whatever, if you give into that callback, you have now just given them all the control in the world, okay? So what we're going to show you is how to lead through the date and time progressions and how to get a result now instead of calling them back to do it, okay? So what we recommend... What's that? Go on.
Can I piggyback just one quick? I don't want you to confuse the callback for confirming. That's a whole different topic. We should touch base on that too, right? But we're not saying that. I guess what we're wanting you to know is that when you have the person on the phone, that's the best time to get the result. And what we're going to show you right now is no matter what scenario pops up, whether they say they need to check with the spouse or can you call me back because I'm busy or whatever it might be, we're going to show you how to still book the appointment and then how to lock it down That's the key. What's in all of this is how to lock it down to make sure that you're not wasting your time and you're making the most of your schedule. So let's go. Sorry, Myrna, to interrupt, but let's go ahead and do the role play or the next part.
So what we'll do is we're going to offer, you'll already know from up here, just in the normal, these are the same questions that are on the normal best script. So up here, we're already going to know what their typical work schedule is. So we're going to kind of have an idea on which times we're going to be offering them. So what we recommend is offering them in sets. We call it alternative of choice. So if we know they're home after 6, I'm going to say, okay, I have a 6:30 and I also have a 7:45. Which time is better for you and your spouse when you're both home together? And if they can't take that, then we're going to now give them 2 more times, maybe the next day. But it always should be in couples, and always make sure you wrap around with saying, so which time is best when you and your spouse are both home together? This is mentioned multiple times throughout so that there's no gray area, that this is for both of these guys. Okay?
Yeah, and so again, right, we're keeping control, but we're making them feel like they have a choice. You need to do that, right? The consumer needs to feel that, like, think about you. You want choices. You don't just want one option. So we're going to give them an option. And there's a lot of people that only offer one. You know, in our old business, when I used to hear appointment setters say, "How about Wednesday?"
Or how about when do you guys? When's good for you guys? We heard that the call team, like, what times with you guys? When are you guys wanting me to come out there? Like that. That's the kind of stuff that automatically gives all of your control and all your posture completely away.
So
right?
Even if you did an excellent job from the intro through the verification, and if you make a weak appointment, now you're setting yourself up for failure, either as a no-show, right, because it's not going to be a strong appointment, because how they're going to think is, well, it was so easy to make the appointment the first time. I'm sure Miranda's not going to mind me rescheduling. Like, she's obviously not that busy. And that's the part you don't want to give them that type of impression. And so what you're doing is you're controlling their thought process. If you don't control what they're thinking as far as the options, then who knows what they're going to be thinking. And I'll give you an example. And I did this about John Ziller, right? Say John Ziller came to Jacksonville and he wants to take me out to dinner because he's a good guy. Now, John Ziller was the #1 producer last year, so I know the guy's making some money. So if John says to me, "Hey, Ben, do you want to go catch some dinner?" I'm thinking, this guy's going to take me to Ruth Chris. You know, he's going to take me, it's going to be like a $100 meal. I'm going to be able to cut my steak with a fork. Like, I'm thinking all sorts of crazy things. But now John's like, "Hey, Ben, I'm in town, man. I kind of want to take you out to dinner, talk a little bit. What do you think about Longhorn or Outback?" So now what John did was he showed me the category of options I have. And so now bring that to your appointment setting side. If I'm SFG and I'm booking the appointment and I'm telling you as the consumer, hey, listen, I'm really busy. I will only have about 15 minutes to show you some different options. I'm going to be in town on Monday and Tuesday. Typically, would mornings or afternoons work better for you? They say mornings. And I'll say, great. Well, listen, I'm able to squeeze you in on Monday at 10:15 or Monday at 10:30. Now, would the 10:15 be good, or would the 10:30 be better for both you and Jane for me to explain the different options? And so now they're only thinking 10:15, 10:30. I'm directing them. If you don't direct them, you're going to get some crazy answers like, well, what about next week? Or that's, there's going to be a lot of different things that can happen, but you can reduce the number of people interrupting you during that appointment process by just guiding them to the appointment.
So that's great, Ben. And now, and we just want to keep going through the alternative of choice times until we find one that's a good fit for them. And you'll know what times you have off your schedule. So let's assume that they've now selected one, okay? This question right here, I'm going to highlight it in green, is the absolute game changer, okay? So I'm going to hold that spot for you and your spouse. Are you positive this is going to work for the both of you? If we don't make them commit to the time, the rest of how good we did the rest of this stuff is not going to matter, okay? For me, if I miss getting a commitment from my client, I have about a 50% less show rate that following week. And there's something that happens as soon as and I'll do it, we'll kind of role play through it. As soon as you call the person out on the table and just ask the one simple line, are you positive this is going to work? They now, something clicks where they're like, oh, it just, they wake up a little bit. And it actually happened to me when I was role playing with a new agent the other day. And the way they said, are you positive this will work? I'm like, whoa, actually, I'm not. And think about it, guys. If you're going to be spending money on leads, hours calling these people, getting ready, printing applications, driving all the way to their house, maybe an hour, half an hour there, half an hour back. If one line that you could say to them could make it like your store weight go up, like, I don't know, I'm going to say at least, for me, it's a 50% difference. Definitely don't miss it. I've done it before, and when I wasn't paying attention and missed it, and then I regretted it that whole following week for sure.
So here are the symptoms. If you are experiencing this in the field, it tells me you're not doing this. If you have a show factor of 50% or less, that's a problem. You should be able to get a 60, 70%, 80% show factor, right? And we're saying that because of this line that she's talking about. The reason why people are afraid to say that, it's called fear of loss. But here's the thing. You don't have anything anyway right now. You have a phone call that you're on. And even though you might pretend that you have a strong appointment, if you accept it and you don't do this, potentially what you're really losing, if you're going to fear anything, fear the fact that you just wasted your time because you could have had a definite appointment on that time slot that you could have been presenting to and helping that family. So if your goal is to stay at 50%, then don't add that in. But I will say this, if your goal is to see 60, 70, 80% of the appointments that you book, add this in and see what happens. And don't be afraid of it, because there are going to be times where they say, no, I'm not sure. That's good. That's what we want. We're trying to pull that out because I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. So if that's not going to be good, we're going to move forward in our date and time progression and book an appointment that will be good for them, that will be definite.
And Ben, one of the things that's real important is understanding what a definite appointment, what kind of response is suitable. And if Ben, I say, hey, are you positive this will work for you? Can you give us some examples of what's not a definite answer that could be disguised as one, perhaps?
Yeah, this is good. So in our old business, Mer, I don't know if you remember, I used to tell everybody, so guys, it's payday and it's time for you to collect the check. And you're asking me where the paycheck is, you know? And I'll say, listen, I think I should have that to you later on tonight. How do you feel when I said that to you about your paycheck? Are you feeling that that's a definite answer? Or are you thinking that there's a good chance that you're probably not going to get paid? Right? Or somebody says to you, yeah, I should be able to pay you tonight. Ooh, listen, man, I can't go to my mortgage company and say that. Like, they want their payment. I need a definite answer on whether or not I'm getting paid. So I want you to ask yourself that question. Am I getting paid tonight with the answer that they gave you? If they say, I think, you're not getting paid. If they say, yeah, that should work, or let's shoot for it, that's another one. Yeah, I'm going to shoot to have your paycheck to you later on tonight. Guess what? I'm running out that back door. You're not getting paid. Okay? So don't accept those answers, and be very sensitive to those words. Write them down so you can identify them quicker. And as soon as you identify them, that's where we're going to hit the I think I can make it response.
And really what I would recommend, just to kind of keep it simple, is if they're not sure, find a time they are sure about. Okay, well, if you're not sure, then let's go ahead and offer, I do have tomorrow at this time or tomorrow at that time. And what you'll find is they're either going to pick a new time, or they're going to go, no, Miranda, that's fine. We'll make it work tomorrow night. And I'll be like, okay, are you sure? Yeah, okay, cool. Now I just put him, I kicked him into gear. You know, now his level of intensity has now gone up. Right?
And the other side of that is when you hit that, you say, listen, are you sure that's going to be a definite time for you? And they say to you, yeah, it should. Well, listen, John, I totally can appreciate that, but listen, I'm meeting with about 15 families a day, and I want to make sure that I'm giving the times to the families that are definitely going to be able to make it. So if that's not going to work for you, let's go and go back to the calendar and let's find a definite day or time that's going to work for both you and Jane. And then he'll either, like what Miranda said, he'll either start to be on your side. He'll be your cheerleader. Like he'll start to prove to you that that's a good time, which now you're solid. Or he's going to say, well, you know, the only reason why I'm saying that it should work is because X, Y, Z. So now he's giving the ball back to us. So it could be because I might get out of work late. Well, guess what? I don't know about you, Miranda, but I'm going to assume he is going to get out of work late, because how often does your plans go the way that they plan?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to take that as a non-definite answer. No worries, John. I tell you what, I know you said evenings are going to be best for you. So on Tuesday, now I'm going to the very next day. So I'm not even going to ask him again. I could tell it's a non-definite answer because he gave it to me twice. And now I'm going to move on to the next day to find a time that will be good.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. Again, you cannot call these guys back, or if they ask you, hey, yeah, let's just put it down, just call me on your way. Is that a definite? You know, check here that I'm still home, just give me a shout. Yeah, okay, man. Like, my answer to that is I don't call anyone to remind them. I'm too busy. I'm meeting with like 15 people a day. I can't even remember to eat, and you're expecting me to remind you of your appointment. I'm like, oh, I hate to tell you I could do that and then not follow through with it, right? So what I would recommend is if you put me on your calendar or maybe set a reminder on your phone, that's definitely something that would be helpful. Can I count on you for that, Ben, just to kind of put a reminder in there, and that way you don't forget about me?
Boom. So she responded. She acknowledged his request as politely as possible. Then she said, basically, no, that's not going to happen. But what I recommend, I'm going to provide you a solution now. I'm going to recommend that I'm pretty sure you have a spot where you keep all your appointments and important things. So if you could just go ahead and put me on that spot, on that calendar, and then I'm going to count on you to call me by chance if that's not going to work out. Fair enough? And now she's asking for a commitment, right? That's the key. It's the commitment part. So, and you'll be amazed on how quick their posture changes and how much more real this becomes to them.
Yep, and it's like I'm working with these clients. I can't really like step away from them to make a phone call. And when I'm working with you, I'll be just as dedicated to making sure that I've got my time, my focus on you guys, right? So if you, as soon as you start closing these doors and you put yourself as the person that's in control, it's like people just respond to that. And I'm telling you, as soon as I got good at that part, not only did my show rate go up, and I'm not even joking, like sometimes it'd be like 90, 80% if I'm sticking to all this stuff. And if I'm, thinking about, my kids in the other room or what are they doing and I'm not sticking to this properly, then yeah, it won't be that high. But it's really cool to see that when you posture yourself properly and when you tie them down the right way, that you can have a very, very, very good show rate for sure.
And that will help your close rate significantly, because think about it. You're basically locking them down and getting them very committed, right? So a committed consumer is very open to what you're going to have to say. So it just makes the sales process so much more smoother. So again, it's a very, very important link, the phone call and the sales process. So if you're struggling in the home, I'm telling you right now that the way that you're doing the phone call, there's a relationship there. And if you can identify that relationship, you're going to fix both problems at the same time.
And if you're getting a whole bunch of people calling to reschedule or cancel, like there obviously is going to be some, but if you're getting like a lot, like more than half or even like, I don't know, probably just a number that's not normal, it's because go to your script. There's probably something in there that you're not posturing yourself correctly, or you might even be telling them to call you if they want to change it. Yeah, if you guys can't make it, or something along those lines, or using the word reschedule, yeah, we can always reschedule if it's not good. If you use the word reschedule, what did you just plant in their mind?
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, this is not going to work. Like, I could totally reschedule at any point.
Yep, you've already planted that seed, right? So be very careful about verbiage. The next part that is very critical is how to check with the spouse, how to tie them down, okay? Because that's probably the number one challenge is these people want to wiggle off the phone because they want to check with their spouse and they want them to call you later. And this is a formula that is very good at getting them to move forward with an appointment and also having you keep them in control where you're not chasing after them. When I was new on the phone, if they told me that, like, hey, yeah, Miranda, I'm going to check with my husband and call me back tomorrow and I'll double, like, we'll see if it works. Now I'm chasing this guy around all day or whatever. And then if I show up to the appointment, they're like, we never talked to you to confirm him. Why are you here? It's not going to work. And they'd have no problem booting me off their doorstep, And I was like, that's not very good. So when I changed it to this, and I actually put the ball, like I'm making them be accountable to contact me, it was a game changer. And I'll show you how I did it. So, hey, Ben, let's go through and you say you want to check with Amy. So I'm going to hold that spot for you and Amy. Are you positive that this is going to work for the both of you?
I know it's going to work for me, but I got to check with my wife. Is there a way that you can just give me a call back?
Well, let's do this, Ben. Let's find a time that you know is good with you and that you think will work with her. And then I'll hold the spot and you can check with her. So assuming that this is good for Amy, was tomorrow at 3 or tomorrow at 5 a good time for you?
Okay, tomorrow at 3. The one thing I'm going to ask you guys all to do is go slow on what she just said at the second portion. So what we're doing is we're acknowledging their concern about the wife. So let's totally understand. I'll tell you what, let's find a time that's going to be definite for you. And the verbiage you use here is very important. The time that's going to be definite for you and that you think is going to work for her, and then we can verify that. So as far as your schedule, this is where I want you to go slow. As far as your schedule is concerned, would the 3 o'clock or 3:30 be better for you? Because what you're doing is you want their mind to forget about the spouse for a minute and just think about them. And then now you're going to pull the definite answer and then hold them accountable to calling us back if it doesn't work with the wife. Speed is key.
So let's try it one more time and then we'll add in the next step. So, hey, Ben, are you positive that this is going to work for you and both you and Amy together?
I'm not positive about her. Is there a way that you could just call me back so I can check with her and verify that? Because I'd hate to get her upset.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, hey, let's do this. Let's find a time that you know is good with you and you think will work with her. And then I'll hold that spot and you can check with her. So assuming that this time works out for Amy, would Wednesday at 3 or Wednesday at 5 definitely be good just for you?
Oh, well, 3 o'clock is perfect for me.
It is. Okay. So I'll hold that spot. If you could give her a call real quick right after we hang up. And if it isn't good, call me back today by, like, I would say, I don't know, 4 o'clock this evening. If I don't hear back from you by then, I'm just going to assume that we're all set and I'll look forward to seeing you at the appointment time. Is that fair enough?
Fair enough. Now, I know this is challenging some of your guys' beliefs here because typically we don't want to give our phone numbers, right? I know that's the thought process because if they have a phone number, then they're more likely to cancel. That may or may not be true, but I tell you what's more true, that they're more likely to cancel if we don't make a strong appointment. Yeah. And so we have to give them a way to communicate with us if we're going to hold them accountable. So we're just turning the tables. Okay, so again, we're not suggesting we change a system. We're just telling you what the best practices are for getting the best results on the appointment setting side, specifically with the call-in leads, but these same principles can be true for all leads that we work.
Yep. And what all is I'm trying to do is just put the ball in their court. That's all I'm doing is, guys, call them right now. If it's not good, call me in an hour. And I really like doing it within an hour. But again, if it's going to, whatever, just put a deadline on it. So that way, if they don't call you by then, you're a done deal. And now if you show up there, it's their fault for them not calling you in the time that they just agreed on. And this was an absolute light bulb went off. I was like, oh my goodness. It was like the people when I showed up there, it was like I was dealing with a whole new set of prospects at that point. So
guys, it's crazy what happens to the show factor with this. So actually, it's crazy what happens to both your book rate and your show rate. What happens is you're going to be capturing more appointments because you're now separating his schedule and her schedule. So you're capturing another 10 or 15% just by doing that. And then what happens is by locking it down the way that we do it, you're going to capture another 20 or 30% or more on the show factor. Now put all that together and tell me what you think that's going to mean to the end result and how many families you help. I mean, it's a significant difference. And we used to track that. We had a system that tracked that. And when we would do a 2-week training for booking, I mean, really, we would take a long time. This is an hour. We would take weeks to train an appointment setter. And very quickly, the system identifies what their show rate is. And just because of how low their show rate is, we knew exactly where in the script they were faltering, right? And it's usually in the date and time progression for the show factor.
And Ben, there was a question. It says, what if they give an it should work and you go back and select a new time, but then they won't commit to a definite time because of they're so busy?
Perfect. So just like, and that's going to happen, and we'll role play that just in a second here. But if that does happen, just know what they're telling you is you need to find a different time, right? And then what's going to happen is when you start to dive in, it's probably because of the spouse's schedule as we dig in. And if that's the case, we already know where we can go. We can separate the spouse schedule and their schedule. So do you want to role play that, Mer?
Yeah, and I think if it pushed outside of the confinements of me booking it this week or next week or whatever, something that I actually had mapped out, if they were being really challenging, I would go back to making sure that if I'm going to really try to work around someone, to make sure that they're not just putting me off because they don't know how to say no, and that there's a legitimate interest. So I might go back to the same question I talked about earlier and saying, guys, obviously, you responded back into this mailing or called in to the postcard because you were concerned about making sure your family's in a good spot. So, before we kind of you start calling them back or do anything crazy that you've really tried to work with, I'd say, guys, is this something that what part of that stood out as a concern for you guys? And I just want to make sure I'm calling them out a little. And they might tell you, no, it's not. I don't care. And then you're like, okay, cool. That way I didn't waste any more time. Or they're going to snap into gear, and then you're dealing with a serious person.
Well, and what typically happens when you do that too is the real reason why they're saying that they can't make it's going to come out. So if they are serious, they'll say, no, we're definitely interested. It's just that, and then they'll give the reason. It's either it's just that because my wife and I, we work opposite schedules, or it's because, my schedule is pretty good, but my wife's schedule is pretty difficult. But in both of those scenarios, now we know where we can go. So the other way that I handle it, Mer, is if I'm convinced that this is something that they're interested in, and they say to me basically twice that they're just unsure and they're pushing back, I'm going to say, listen, let me ask you a question. Are you unsure because of your work schedule, or are you unsure because of maybe your wife's schedule? And again, I'm giving them a choice. I'm helping them communicate with me so I can find a solution. And if I bring that out right away, they always tell me one or the other. So if it's the work schedule, we can just work around it. We start to ask a few questions. That's okay. Great time to build a little bit of rapport, what type of work you do. And then we say, do you typically work Monday through Friday, have off Saturdays and Sundays, or generally what's your schedule like? Just to find out a little bit more information when they're home. And then if they talk about, no, it's totally my spouse, well, Miranda just went into that, how we can separate the spouse schedule from his schedule.
And you might want to check with your upline on it, but for me, I like having some pipelined appointments, which means I typically like going into my next week with about 5 scheduled ahead of time. And that's not meaning I did that on purpose. Like my schedule probably filled up. Like let's say they could do an evening only, and my evenings were full on the times I could run appointments. So I start putting them onto next week, or maybe the people are out of town, now they're on next week. So sometimes by kind of pipelining a few of them, then you can help get them on the board. Because and this is something, check with your upline, but for me, I would rather get an appointment now and then try to call these guys back to schedule, because there's a good chance you might never reach them again on the phone. So that's kind of how I work around it. I might even set them out a little further if I really have to, if there's like a legitimate reason that they're so busy, like let's say they're not in town or whatever, if someone's sick or whatever the case may be. But Ben, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was talking on the mute. As a key point, just on that topic, and then we'll be done with it, is if you do that, just know that what we do is we'll call them on Friday to confirm, because we don't want to assume that's appointment. That's a little bit further away, right? So those really aren't appointments. Those are just possibilities. So any of those pipeline appointments that we book, we typically confirm those on Friday when we start our dialing, and either knock them out or confirm them in. But again, that's all just what we do on our team. So you guys please approach your mentors and ask them what their guidance are. But Murrah, I know we're approaching top of the hour here, and are there any more questions and anything that we can help with?
A lot of people are asking for the script. We'll find a way to get that out. Someone says, do you reminder if they're more than 3 days? I personally don't remind anyone unless it's the following week, but I'm tying them down real tight like this. So just be careful if you do call somebody. The reason we call Friday nights before, if we book them a week out, is because we're okay if they cancel at this point. They're either going to be an appointment or they're going to be off the books, and I'd rather know that before I start my dials, right? So I can fill their spot with
Yep. And I'll say this: if you try to confirm sooner than later, like to get the pipeline appointments for now, just assume we're talking about appointments for next week. There are a lot of people out there that think that they need to remind them there's a higher chance of a show factor, and actually what happens is you're giving them a way out. So do not do that. It's not a good idea. And again, if you're finding that your show factor, you're just treating the wrong symptom. If the reason why you want to call to remind them is to give a better chance of them being there, but the reason why you have a lot of no-shows is not because of that, it's because of how you're locking down the appointment.
Yep. And I think people were asking about the call recording app. I think that Ben uses Tape-A-Call. I actually use Ring Central, but it's a monthly subscription that I do for that. But when we you could use the recorder on your phone though, just to practice. And that right there, you're going to learn so much out of what you're saying just by doing that. So I would recommend doing that. Practice, like, be your own manager, your best, you're got to be your own worst boss and your best employee at the same time. I would start there. And then, yeah, if you can find a way to get your calls recorded. I've even had people call on speaker and then record it from like their iPad or something so I could hear what was going on both ways. So just and I'm telling you, you're going to learn more about little tiny things that could squeeze in there. And on the phone, one word or one way that you say something can be a complete game changer. So,
and just as an insight, in our last career, we wouldn't even get anybody on the phone until they memorized their script. Like, one of the requirements for me, I know I was a bit more strict than Miranda, but like I would say, okay, here's the deal. Here's a one-page script. I want you to memorize it. Come back tomorrow and let's see what you do. If you have it memorized, then we'll be able to move on to the next the next training, right? The next training section. And here's what's crazy: is the people that actually take the time to memorize it, those are the ones that kill it when they get on the phone. Because, and I know we talked about this before, if you already know what you're going to say, you're not focusing on that. You're only focusing on how you're saying it, and that's what matters. So a real quick study tip for memorizing a script is, for me, I'm a terrible memorizer, so I actually wrote out the script. And what I would do is I would write out each sentence 6 times. So I would write the first sentence of the script only 6 times in a row, and then I would write the first and second sentence 6 times in a row. And then I would write the first, second, and third sentence 6 times in a row. And I would do that through the entire script. And my hand would hurt like crazy at the end, but I think it took me like an hour and a half. In an hour and a half, I had that script memorized. Because there's no way your brain can't memorize it through repetition.
And the same thing goes at the start of reading it. I think, Ben, is what we would do is read it out loud 6 times first, and then break it down words at a time. But yeah, absolutely, guys. This is your business. You can drive it like a Ferrari, or you can, drive it like a Pinto, as they say. So, the ball's in your hands. We're going to find a way to get this script circulated. And I'm sure that we can get that done today to these guys so that they've got it for dials tomorrow and tonight.
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do, but I'm sure they could email it if anything. So.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a request in for Pam. We'll just send it to Pam and then have Pam send it off to everybody else. At least that way you have something to work off of. But guys, get excited. This is some exciting stuff here. And I hope this was beneficial. We really try to condense this. I know it sounded like it was a long training, but it really is not as long as it could be. So if you enjoyed it, please share that with your mentor. But other than that, is there any other final questions we can answer before we get off?
Tom says that for Android phone, Record My Call is a great app that can be configured to upload a call to Dropbox or Google automatically. And rebuttal, speak, okay, oh, sorry, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, I think we're good on all this, unless there was something that I missed. But yeah, all right, guys, I hope it was helpful, and yeah, we went a little over, but I'm sure that it'll be a very, very impactful, and I guess that's it.
All right, guys, have a great day, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.